Do you think they were the first ones to wake up and then they walked around and like kick the foot of another? It's like, hey, you awake? And like then they wake up and they're like, all right, you're gonna come with me.
I picture they're.
Or are they all awake?
I think they're all along the shores of Cunyan, right? Because it's a huge inland sea,
just
right?
Nude star bathing.
And they're just, and you know.
How's your day?
Oh, it's okay.
All right.
We
I don't have to just jump into it.
Okay. My neighbor and I. So I have a router table that's not here, but it's on wheels, it's on casters, and so I wheeled it over to my neighbor's house because he's got a project. He's actually building an entire window, and so he's got these router bits that'll make it so that it does the profile and then the rabbet for where the window's supposed to sit in. And so he's super stoked about it. So I've been doing that all day today.
Nice.
It's nice to actually have a weekend again.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You were working Sundays? Or Saturdays?
I was working Sundays, and my boss wanted me to come in, so I'm like, I'm not going to work on Sunday.
Yeah.
And then I went in once.
I was going to say,
she was there.
Are you technically back to like
No.
you can't go in again?
You can't go in again.
Yeah.
You got a text message from the firm administrator. She's like, look at your email or your glip, which is like this little message thing that we got at work. And it's basically said like, hey, like if you need to come in on the weekends to grab some stuff, like go ahead. It is what it is. It's 3 weeks, hopefully, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
then they evaluate it.
I honestly wish they wouldn't do timelines. Like, what was the very, very first timeline that we heard, and now we're 9 months into it?
So, if you can't see, like Chris and I are 6 feet apart.
Yeah. That's why we're not in the same camera.
We're in my garage with the garage door open, as you can see. So there's air coming in, air going out. So
I have an announcement to make.
Oh yeah?
Are you ready?
Let's hear it.
Iluvatar.
Oh, you said it.
So, here's the problem. I did not realize, and I don't think I ever have realized because it happens so infrequently in his writing, that there is an actual accent mark in his name over the U. So were that accent mark not there, it would be Iluvatar. But there is an accent over the U.
I feel so much
And
better.
and I saw that and I was like, fuck.
There's a...
Because there is an actual written accent, which you don't see very often in much of Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
Like in Quenya, in Sindarin, like it's just not something that you see that often. Yeah. And so I went back and I was looking, I don't even remember what I was looking up, but it was written with the accent. I'm like, is that how it is? And then I looked at other places, and then I got on, because I have a digital copy of the Silmarillion, and I get on that, I'm like, so, Iluvatar.
Yeah.
Iluvatar.
See, that makes me...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my announcement.
So see, you were ragging on people for saying...
Yeah, but I am
wrong.
not a fucking professor. I don't claim to be anything here. But yes, I was saying that incorrectly. It is Iluvatar. Did you look over the casting?
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah. So
I saw the photo that you posted.
Uh-huh.
I don't recognize any of those people, which is good.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's better when it's not anyone that you know.
So one of the guys that's on there, I'm like, dude, I know who this is, and he is actually the main actor on Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. And I was like, I'm so stoked that he's gonna be in this.
Did it say who they're playing, or
no,
just announced?
They just announced. I think it was like 20 new actors. And
it's a big cast.
It's a huge cast. Well, because I think they had about 8 actors announced before.
To announce actors, right?
Right.
To announce 20 actors for a TV show, like typically you have like what, maybe
a few main characters.
Like a big show like Breaking Bad, right?
Right.
You had Bryan Cranston, you had the wife, you had his son, right?
Jesse.
Then you have his brother-in-law and and sister-in-law.
Right.
Right? And then you have
people like coming into the show.
Yeah,
Periodically.
and then you have the bad guys, right? Which
Right.
is probably 3 or 4. So you got like 10 maybe,
yeah.
right? 10 people who are your main cast. That's getting to Game of Thrones amount of people.
It is. And I'm really excited about the cast that I saw. I don't want to go talking. It was funny. I made a whole like video on my own, and then I was like, I don't think I want to go that route. I'm going to say simply the positive of how I feel, and I'm excited about the people that I'm seeing on there. Yeah. I'm excited about the cast, and anybody who says otherwise sucks balls. There are a lot of comments.
I mean, wait until the show comes out.
Oh, it has nothing to do with that.
Oh, really?
There are a lot of comments because of ignorant people.
Oh, well.
I don't know if you saw the type of cast, the variety of cast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people are upset about that. It's, fuck all of you guys.
Yeah, I mean...
There's nothing specific.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless somebody's... Like, look, yes, Galadriel is very well spelled out that she is tall, blonde, and fair-skinned, right?
You have elves who are of a certain ethnic...
Right. My
makeup.
problem is when it comes in and you see people like, I don't know, people that I'm like, I really like, I have to believe that you're not a fan, like a real fan, with some of the stuff that people are saying.
Yeah.
And like part of that is also like the idea of, like, there was a comment that said something like it had to have been somebody that had never read it before and maybe just saw the movies.
Yeah.
But even then, they would be wrong because they were like, all elves are blue-eyed and blonde hair. I'm like,
no.
Dude, Elrond, man. Like, watch the fucking movies. Like, even if that's the limit of your knowledge of Lord of the Rings, there's at least that.
And the only reason Galadriel is blonde hair, blue eye, because her mother.
Right.
Right? So.
It's just, I almost got...
It's how genetics works, people.
I almost got into some internet arguments, and then I was like, nah. I am simply going to say, I personally am actually very excited about the cast that I'm seeing.
Wait until the show comes out. Then
and I still want... The one thing that I did say, or like post on... I think it was actually on their announcement on Lord of the Rings. Loderon Prime is what their tag is. I know, right? I think I put it actually on one of their things. Like the guy who plays Abraham Lincoln. I know that so many people are saying that this is going to be focused on like the fall of Numenor, but I don't want it to be. I don't want just the fall. Like I want to
see High Numenor.
I want Aldarion.
Yeah.
I want Aldarion the Mariner.
You want that story.
Yeah, I really want that story. And so like him as Aldarion, I would love. And then Arendis, there is an actress that I put on there that I would love to see her as Arendis. And I personally so she's a black actress, and I honestly think it would fit the story of Arendis really well because she was of kind of a different line of men on Numenor. Yeah. And I just think it would fit really, really well. I don't think... I mean, I get it. The fall of Numenor is the exciting part.
Well, yeah, you need a reason, right? There needs to be...
But that's the thing. They don't... That is when they go back to Middle-earth. Before that, they don't. Those first 4 kings, they never go back to Middle-earth. They kind of leave it aside. Yeah. And then it's not until Aldarion that he starts to travel back to Middle-earth and he meets Gil-galad and like starts helping him with his war against Sauron and stuff like that.
Which is odd, don't you think? Because like the first king of Numenor is brothers with Elrond.
Yeah, I know, right?
You would think he'd go back to visit him.
They're like, nah.
Nah, he's like, I don't...
Fuck that place.
Yeah.
This island's the best.
There was a Reddit thread talking about like, you know, the gift of men and like the half-elvens and like, you know,
being able to choose,
right? And so like Arwen's able to like choose to have a moral life, right? but like, what does that really mean? And then did Elros? Was it not Elros?
Elros, yeah.
Is that Elrond's
brother?
Oh, that's his brother.
Yeah,
Who are
yeah.
his kids?
Oh, I don't remember their
Elrohim
names.
Or something like,
yeah.
something like that. It's similar. The names are similar to Elrond, right?
Anyway.
Did they choose to be elves?
I actually heard a discussion of that on a podcast that I was listening to.
And he's called half elven, but he's not really half elven. He's like quarter elven.
Right. Like, well,
he's like quarter elven. He's like half elven, half man.
Eighth Maya.
Quarter man, like quarter Maya.
Yeah.
He's like some weird thing. Anyways, that's an interesting story, but that's not what we're talking about.
No. Today we are talking about all of the things we already talked about. But I mean, we're going back into the history, right? I don't know why I keep taking things out of my pockets. And we're going back into the history, and basically just like we left off with Ariel, with the trees coming into being, right? And now there's light in Valinor, or I guess technically in Aman? Arda.
There's only light in
Arda.
In Valinor.
Well, Valinor is the city, right? Arda is like the landmass.
Is it Arda? I thought Arda was...
Or is it Aman?
I think it's Aman.
Aman is the landmass.
Yeah.
Arda's the world. Yes.
I should go get my...
Fine.
I have my map.
Yeah, it's fine.
I have my Atlas of Middle Earth.
I've wanted that. Like, I think it looks really cool.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Well, it does technically matter.
Right.
Because so the light is only where the Valar are.
Right.
So the light ends at the Pelori Mountains.
Right. So it ends there, and Orome and Yavanna are the only ones that really fuck around with Middle Earth anymore, right? Everybody else is like, we built our mountains, we built our wall, we're fine. Yeah. Like screw everything else, we don't care. And
they're a gated community.
Yeah, exactly. And Yavanna like goes over there, and I think I like the way that it talks about it, because it's kind of this idea of like she goes over remembering like the spring of Arda, right? Like the way that Arda is the world. All right. The spring of Arda, and I know it gets there eventually. And how like that was like everything was growing and everything was beautiful. So she kind of put a sleep on a lot of stuff, right? But then she's also just looking at like all the fucking shit that Melkor has done to the place. Yeah. And she's like, this is garbage. Like, I worked really hard for this shit.
Yes.
And then finally goes back and, like, let's be real, she uses the elves as an excuse.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't really care.
She wants to garden.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And her reasoning is, but the elves.
Yeah. The elves are gonna show up, right, guys? Yeah. We need to save them. We need to make sure that they're not. And then she pulls that card too, and which I love. Like she does the whole like, are they going to come to being under the reign of Melkor when Manwë sits on Taniqueto? Like this whole thing, and then Tolkas is like really roused up by that. Like
she knows how to push Tolkas.
Yeah, he's like, fuck no, they're not.
He hates him some Melkor.
He hates him some Melkor. That's the only reason why he came down.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he's even there, is to fuck up Melkor.
Yeah, you guys talked about...
We talked about that.
Yeah, you talked about that.
Yeah. Him coming down and in his laughter and Melkor, like, bouncing.
Yeah.
Melkor does that a lot. But one thing that I forgot about... is the idea of, like, when that happened, Mandos... Mondas, technically. Because O only makes A, like Osgiliath.
Okay.
So it's actually Mondas, which is a really weird word to say. Mondas.
The halls of Mondas.
Yeah.
I hate that guy.
Does he come by all the time?
Oh, all the time. I really hate that guy.
Is that a Porsche?
Can you leave that in? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can.
Mondas.
Which is just a weird word.
I don't like it. I'm going to pronounce it
Mandos.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm perfectly okay with that.
I'm going to mispronounce things
because I wanna.
Because they sound better to my ear.
Yeah. So
I'm not a professor of Tolkien.
I do like that. Like at that point, Mandos is just like in his Mandos way. I always think of just like creepy emo Mandos, like in the background, and he's just like, by the way.
Have you ever seen Teen Titans?
No, I haven't watched it.
There's this one character, and she's like moody.
The Raven?
Raven.
Yeah.
That's how I picture Mandos.
Yeah, just always kind of...
Just...
Well, and like in my head, anytime he talks, it's like from behind, like this like...
Either that or like Death from Wayne's World 2.
Yeah. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yeah. I still need to watch the new one.
Is it out?
Yeah, it came out during quarantine.
Did it?
Yeah.
They just go straight to stream?
Yeah.
Anyway, I like the Mandos with that whole thing, right? Yavanna's like, we gotta go do this, we gotta save the elves, and Mandos is like, we can't, because they're supposed to be born under the stars. Yeah. And then Varda's just like, oh, are they? Like, I do feel like Tolkien, the one thing about Tolkien is that he overuses and that was the worst thing that happened, and this was the best thing that happened, and he was the mightiest of, because it's like, okay, was Feanor the mightiest, or was Thingol the mightiest, or was Fingolfin the mightiest? Because you said it about all of them,
He was the mightiest up to that point.
Right. Well,
because if you read it that way, it's a continuing history.
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Then Feanor's the mightiest. I think they're all different. They're mighty in different ways, right?
But
because Feanor is the only one to burn up and die. Right. Like yes. That's how mighty he was, right?
But was that just mighty in spirit, or what I mean? Yeah.
So and then Fingolfin killed Gothmog.
Right. Right.
So yeah, he was the mightiest
right.
in that sense.
Right.
So I'd let him.
But anyway, in that part, it says that Varda then did the most marvelous creation that the elves ever thought, even though he already said that about the trees, right? Because the trees that Yavanna made were supposedly the most important and marvelous and all that stuff, because it brings about the Silmarils and everything else, right? But Varda, right. And so Varda now is all right, I'm gonna take little droplets of Telperion's little tub, and I'm gonna throw it into the sky and make really obscure pictures with stars. But what I do like about this part of it is the same thing that I like about the Tale of the Sun and the Moon that I told about, is that it's one of those parts where it's true mythology. Yeah. Right? It gives a reason to something that we still have today.
Yes, it's very Greek in its nature.
Yeah, and so he says all of these constellations, and on all of them except for one, he just gives you the name. Well, two, because he gives you the sickle of the Vala also, but all of them except for two, he just gives the names. But then he says Melkor, which is my favorite, and his shining belt, and I am only to assume that it is Orion. Yeah. Right? I think that's kind of the point here, is to give us, again, a connection again.
Tie it to, the real...
Because
that's what he was going for.
Because it's a mythology.
Well, that's what he was going for.
Yeah, and I think
there was no mythology...
For England.
Right? And so he created one. Yeah. Because you see, the Welsh, and then you see the countries... the countryside with the hobbits and all that stuff, right? And then, there are parallel that he was trying to draw parallels to and bring it into reality.
Yeah,
a little bit, right?
And those small things are things that I really like about it, where it's this. By the way, here's a little tiny line that shows to you this is our world. Right. It was just before, like before any memory.
Even Middle Earth itself,
Yeah.
like looks like England.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. The after Balerion falls, like
Yeah.
the map of Middle Earth. There, you're like, oh yeah, that's Wales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that looks very Welsh
Yeah.
right along that line.
Yeah.
Like Cornwall and like all of that. Like it just yeah. No, I agree. But those are the parts that like I really like those parts.
Yeah.
Like that kind of tie you back in to say like this is the world that we live
like,
in.
This could have been real.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Like yeah.
So then okay.
Yeah. So stars are stars are there. And as Melkor, because I love that line. As Melkor rises,
here wake up the elves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I told you this story and I was wrong. Because it's not in the Silmarillion.
I was just gonna let you graze over that and
That's
not
all right.
admit your defeat there.
I will repeat my mistakes.
Yeah.
It is actually from the War of the Jewels, right, which I haven't read.
I haven't either.
Other than on Tolkien Gateway.
Right.
Right, which is how I know this story. But so when the elves awaken, there's the story that they tell, right? That it's 3 elves and their wives that wake up, right? And it's Imin, Tata, and Enel are the first 3 to wake up, which means first, second, third.
Right. Which is fantastic.
And then their wives are
so
similar.
very unimaginative.
It's very, very unimaginative, right? It's what am I gonna name them?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Well, and you said the wives are 1, 2, 3, but like female.
Yeah,
basically.
It's a female. It's the wife. Imin's wife is Emenye, Tata's wife is Tatye, and Enel's wife is Enelye, right? Or however you say it. Again,
those ancient elves, man, they're.
But the story goes that there were 144 total elves, right, that awoke at that very beginning.
And we talked about that the whole numerology thing there.
Right. It's probably a legend that the elves told. And so, but the legend story goes that when Imin and Tata and Enel woke up, they started walking down the shores of Cuvianan to look for other elves, right? And so Imin was the first one who found 14 elves, right?
But again, so I'm gonna go back to this because we didn't get it. Do you think they were the first ones to wake up and then they walked around and kick the foot of another? It's like, hey, you awake, and then they wake up and they're like, all right, you're gonna come with me.
I picture they're
or are they all awake?
I think they're all along the shores of Cuvianan, right? Because it's a huge inland sea,
just
right?
Nude star bathing,
and they're just Melkor comes up,
right?
And then
God, I love that name.
Imin just whoa, gets up, right? and then it's just a kind of like the wave, right?
Just boom,
but
boom, boom,
he
boom.
wakes up, right? And then they're just they're all spread out so much, and they're these 14 elves that he finds, they were all kind of in a cluster, right? So I picture it's 6 elves over here that first wake up, right? The first 3 of their wives. Which, how are they already married?
I just like the idea of them like the 3 guys wake up, the 3 ladies wake up, and it's just
you and me, me and you. Okay.
All right, we're good.
So we're married.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? Right. And so then they kind of walk down the shores. They find it must be 12, right? Because there's 14 of them total. So they find 12 other elves. And they're like, you guys are mine, right? So Imin claims them. Kind of a dick thing to do, right? Just claim other people, right? And then, so then they keep walking down, and so then Imin's thinking, oh, I'm gonna, there's twice as many here at this group. I'm gonna wait my turn, because when we pass another group, I'm gonna find a ton, right? So then he passes his turn. Tata's you guys are with me, right? And so then they keep walking, and then Enel finds the largest group.
Right.
And they keep walking. They don't find any more.
Yeah, that's
right?
it.
That's it. So Imin's got the smallest group, but they are, I think, in my opinion, the more esteemed group of elves.
Right.
The Vanyar, right?
Right.
They they go to Amon.
No. Yes.
They go to Amon. You see, I got me confused.
I know, right?
They go to Amon, and they never.
Yeah, they're there.
Right? They come back. We'll talk about it later, right? But they for all purposes, right? They wake up in Middle Earth, and then at some point they leave, and they never come back.
Right.
And then the second group become the Noldor, right? That's their founder.
Right.
Is Tata. Tata is the founder of the Noldor. And they were the second to largest group. And then you have the Teleri, who were Enel's huge group of people, and like that's it. So that's the awakening of the very, very first elves, according to the War of the Jewels.
Which I like, and I think the reason why I like it, because one, I had never heard it before.
Yeah.
I think you had tried to tell me that story once before as well,
Yeah.
but you didn't know like the whole thing behind it. And then we talked about it, but like one of the things that I do like is that like the reason why I like that story and why it can make sense with or without like the Silmarillion is that it's not in the viewpoint of the narrator.
Right.
It is a elf telling a story,
Right.
which
it's essentially a short story.
Yeah.
It's a fable.
Right.
Right.
Which I like that because it can kind of be anything at that point. Yeah. Like it's not, and that's what I've realized. A lot of people like you have to know the difference between a narrator speaking, who is like an all powerful, all knowing narrator,
right, and
a character speaking.
Right.
And in this, it's a character telling a fable or whatever, right, which is fun.
Right. And it going back into the whole like Tolkien building mythology for England, like it's a mythology within a mythology.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's their story of how they came to be.
Yeah.
It's Tolkien telling the story of how England came to, what happened in England before it was England.
Yeah.
And then in the story, they're telling the story of how they came to be. Yeah. Right. So it's kind of interesting. True or not, right?
Right. Well,
probably not, because you never hear from them again.
Yeah. Well, you see the same thing with the dwarves and what will happen to them after death. Right. We're never told by the narrator what will happen to them after death, but they believe, like the dwarves themselves believe, that they will come back and help Aule rebuild the earth. Yeah. Right? Like that's their mythology. Like that's what they believe will happen. We have no idea because we were never told by the narrator.
We'll talk about this. Now you can cut this out, but I did see this cool thing on Reddit. I should have sent it to you, but I didn't. It was talking about how, when that Legolas kind of hung out in Middle Earth. Like everyone had already left. All the ships had left. Oh God, why can't I think of his name now? The Grey Havens.
Círdan
had already gone.
Right.
And so Legolas hung back and he hung out with Gimli, right? And then he was like, okay, it's time for me to go. Gimli, come with me. Right. And Gimli wanted to go because he wanted to see Galadriel again.
Right.
But Gimli's a dwarf. Gimli's not allowed there.
Right.
Right? And so it was talking about how, like, well, Galadriel's so powerful that she gave her blessing for Gimli to be there. And then Gimli, I didn't even realize this, actually got to meet his creator.
Oh, yeah.
By going to
see Aule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
By going to Amon.
Yeah.
Gimli was the first dwarf to go meet his creator.
Yeah. Because, well, the first of any kind. Because men and elves, they never met Iluvatar. They haven't yet. Not that we know of.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
He would be the first of anyone
right.
to meet his creator.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
But technically, Iluvatar, Aule is the
he's the instrument.
He's the designer.
Right.
Right. Iluvatar was still the creator.
Absolutely.
But in the mythology of the dwarves, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Aule was their creator.
But
that's a completely side story.
Right. But we talked about that with the whole Aule thing, right? One of the things that I actually thought was interesting there was something that Well, it's actually a good segue into what's happening. So after we'll get to it, I guess. Yeah. After they awaken, right, and they've got their groups of people, at some point, we literally have no idea, because it could have been 1,000 years, it could have been a few hundred, we don't know. But at some point, from them waking up, Orome found them. Right, and Orome was just running through the woods, and it actually wasn't, again, going through it again, it wasn't Orome who realized it at first, it was his horse. His horse stopped and was like, I hear something. Yeah, and Orome is like, the fuck is that sound? And he goes over and he sees these, I can only, the only way I can picture it is that Orome and his horse are 25 feet tall, so they just see these little tiny elves.
Yeah, you keep. I think you've brought it up. I think you brought it up in the last one with Ariel about how tall are they, right?
Right.
I don't think they're that tall.
I think I may be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it says that they can change.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're big.
Right.
Right.
I mean, they're gonna be.
I guess 25 feet tall is pretty big.
It is.
Yeah.
But I also think that Melkor walking across the Helcarax to get to Middle Earth is a larger Melkor than, let's say, Melkor fighting Fingolfin. Yeah. You know what I mean? I do think that those sizes change.
You think he shrunk just to fight him?
No, I think he was losing power. He kind of was anyway. We know that he was kind of losing power. Yeah. So I think that he was just losing power. And it says that he went to battle always with his iron crown with the Silmarils, and that thing fucking weighed him down.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine that it also drained him, but he was too prideful to ever take it off.
Yeah.
But that's a different. That goes into Orome, but the whole idea that Orome comes up, right? He finds them.
Founds them. He founds them. I found this race of elves in the name of Orome.
I feel like I've been watching too much Mandalorian.
Did I make yours too strong?
Yeah, with the foundlings.
Yeah.
But he finds them, and they freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
At first, most of them freak out because they are worried about the hunter.
Right.
Right? They're worried about Melkor, who's been fucking snatching them up for who knows how long, and doing what they're not quite sure, but later come to know, turning them into orcs.
Yeah.
So the reason why we know as readers that it was elves that were turned into orcs is because the narrator tells us that, right? He also tells us that the learned know this.
Yeah.
The wise know this, right? And they know this, but they also know that, and I thought this was really interesting because I think this is important when you look back at Aule. Stop falling. Okay.
I'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I don't know how long it had been like that.
I don't think it's been on like that.
Is that it says, a very specific line says, for he could not create anything since his rebellion in the music.
Right.
So I don't actually think that it's that the Ainur are not allowed to create. I think that his rebellion is what caused that.
Well, they can create, right?
Right, because Yavanna does.
Yavanna does.
Right? I mean, there's a lot of things that Yavanna creates. Life.
Yeah. And the stars, right?
Manwë creates eagles.
Yeah. So I think what Melkor can't do is Melkor can't. He doesn't have the fire impenetrable.
Right. So he can't give a soul to something, basically.
And that's
what Aule couldn't do also.
Right.
And then Iluvatar said, I will do it for you after he did it.
And so, of all the which kind of, now going into it, now that I think about it, kind of sucks, right? We'll talk about it. Is, there's some sort of destiny
for the orcs.
For well, no, not for the orcs.
Oh.
The orcs don't have a destiny.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, they're elves.
I know they're technically elves, which is the other shittier thing.
Right.
Which we did talk about.
Yeah.
In the last,
and we can definitely get into that.
And we will get into that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where we're at right now.
But yeah. So if if men have the gift, right?
Right.
We don't know what happens to them,
right.
And elves come back to the halls of Mandos and whatever. They don't. Nothing happens. They're tied to
right.
Arda, right? Or Arda.
And we don't know what's gonna go down after Dagorath. I think it's just supposed to be the world remade and everybody's on it and happy at that point. For the elves.
And we don't know. We don't know what happens with the step
right.
kids, right? But so they're kind of there's men, elves, and dwarves, right? There's kind of a destiny for them.
Right.
Something that
there's a fate.
We don't know. There's a fate.
Right. It doesn't have to be like a destiny, but there's a fate.
What about eagles? What about ents?
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What about all these other things that were created, which the ents have? These ents, I guess, essentially become trees in the mythology.
Right. They get tree-ish.
They get tree-ish, and then they forget that they're trees,
ents,
right?
Yeah.
They're ents, right? And they become trees.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they do get to create, but I don't think the creations get to last.
Right. But so that's where
there's a spirit in there, but it's not a soul, I guess.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, we know that there's a spirit in there. If you look at, if you go back to the Fellowship of the Ring, and the fox comes up to the hobbits, and he says, "Hobbits, how interesting." He talks to himself. So there's an idea that this fox is sentient, right?
Yeah.
And this is coming from the narrator. So the narrator is telling us what this fox is thinking. So there's at least that. We know that there's something in there.
Yeah, there's more humanness in things in Tolkien's world at that time than there is now.
Right.
Right. But I think that goes away.
Yeah.
Just like the elves' power diminishes.
Right.
Right. And Arda was made for men.
Right. With how much that really pissed off the elves.
Right. Right. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know where else I was going with that,
but it is so that. I mean, essentially through this entire time where they've woken up and Orme has come, Melkor has just been snatching people up.
Yeah.
And it even says the very first songs and stories by the elves were about the fucking boogeyman coming to get them, and it's it's just been Melkor snatching them up, and then we don't know what. Corrupting is what it says, twisting, we don't know what he did to create the race of orc, but the race of orc is now basically self-sustaining, which is a really weird thought.
We've never seen any orc women.
No, but I mean, but it also says they reproduce in the manner of elves,
right?
Elves and men, or I think it says the children of Iluvatar.
Yeah, which is there are orc women.
Right.
Right. So
and babies.
They're orc babies.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Right.
So I'm thinking, it's did you ever play Knights of the Old Republic?
No, it's a Star Wars game.
Star Wars game.
No.
Right. So which is kind of cool. It's very much choose your own adventure type game.
Okay.
Right. And you have options that either make you more light side or more dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you choose the dark side options, your character becomes more and more dark side-ish.
Okay.
Right? So I was thinking about this after our initial video on this, right? And I was thinking, well, maybe the corruption was more like how, a Sith becomes, right? In the Star Wars.
Slowly making bad decisions.
Right. Making them make bad decisions.
Right.
Or just corrupting them, however he corrupts them.
Right.
And so as he's corrupting them, he's essentially changing them.
Right.
And he's essentially he's essentially doing what you would do to breed a dog.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
So
Which are, again, they're like, now they're self-sustaining, right? You've got Chihuahuas and Great Danes and German Shepherds, and
pit bulls that are next door having a good time.
Yeah,
at the neighbor's house.
they are a breed of their own.
Right.
But does that mean that their fate is changed?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
I
think that's a topic for another.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
In and of itself.
Yeah. I mean,
debate that.
Yeah, like the idea of just orcs as a video is definitely going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But they tell this to Orome.
Yeah.
Like, he realizes that some of them like shrink away, right? They're scared of him, and others, like, they stick around long enough to see, like, oh no, this dude's cool.
Yeah.
Like it says, he's got the light of Amen in his face, right? So they're like, all right, yeah, we're good here. But like, he goes back and he tells Manwë, he's like, dude, they're scared as fuck. Like, they're getting snatched up by Melkor. They told me all these stories. Like, we have to do something about this. And Manwë's just like, let me think on it, bro.
Manwë's would work.
The way that Manwë does, right? He's just like, let me think on this. And then Orome is just like, okay, and goes back.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that part's kind of cool because I do feel like the elves learned a lot during that time with Orome. Because we have no idea how long that was.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell us, but it does say that he dwelt with the elves, whatever that means. 5 years, he could have been around for 100 years. Right. He could have been around more.
Yeah, and I think what you need to look into it, like, or look at it, right, is their perception of time is way different.
Right.
Right. It's different than the elves.
Right, which is why I think that
it's different than and the elves are different. The way that elves perceive time versus men.
Right, and we see that with, like, Hurin and Hurin, because they're like, guys, we don't live as long as you. We gotta bounce.
Yeah.
Like,
we gotta do this now.
Yeah. But I think that's why we see, because we see time as such a finite thing, that because of that we look at Manwë and we're like, dude, like,
what's your deal?
Yeah, why are you thinking so long? Like, what is like?
And to him, he's
like it's been 30 seconds. What are you talking about? Like, it doesn't matter to him, right? But he does finally call everyone back. Calls them to the Circle of Doom. Is that what they call it?
I think so.
Right? Which, it wasn't until recently that I realized, and I went through to look at past, like, English, and realized that doom is used as fate.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the doom of Mandos is the fate of Mandos, right? It's not, he's not dooming people.
He's not cursing.
The way that we...
curse of Mandos.
Right, and so, like, the same thing, the Circle of Doom, I think, is the same idea as the Circle of Fate, right? That's what they gather around to kind of discuss the fate of Arda, essentially.
Right.
So they all get back together, and even Olmo comes out of the water, right? And they're like, let's do this. Yeah. Like, let's get amped. We're going to go. And Tolkos, I'm sure, is just like...
Tolkos wasn't down.
Stoked.
Was not down at that point.
He was down for this one.
But he wasn't down at that point.
Yeah.
I thought he came down at the very end of the battle.
No, he came down at the end of the very, very first battle before the beginning of Days.
Okay.
Yeah. So he came down before they even built the lamps.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were battles that we don't know about that happened before, and that's when he came down.
Okay.
So he was already here for this. But, I'm sure Tolkos is stoked.
Yeah.
But when they go and do this, Aule is like, I really don't want this to happen.
Yeah.
Because Aule knows that he's the one that's going to have to rebuild the fucking mountains.
Guys, if we do this, I'm going to be the one who has to build this stuff again.
Right.
And I just built it, and Melkor screwed it up.
Like, every time we get in a fight, I'm the one that has to clean this up.
Stop training people who are going to screw things up for you. Stop being the teacher of the bad. And that's his penance.
Yeah, right?
That's his penance for creating dwarves.
Yeah, you've got to rebuild the fucking mountains because guess what you did?
Yeah, you created dwarves.
Yeah.
I just picture Iluvatar just going, like, him going up to either to Manway, right?
Yeah.
And just being like, do we really have to do this, right? He's like, do I have to remind you? You created dwarves. Damn it.
Son of a bitch. It's just always going to come back, isn't it? It's just going to come back to me.
Not going to let it go, are you, Manway?
Ooh, I created dwarves. Thanks.
The worst thing ever. Just wait.
Yeah.
My buddy Sauron and me.
Who, by the way, is already with...
that's right. He's already with...
He's over there with him already, right?
Over there.
And probably the one that's been, like, sneaking elves away.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like...
He's probably been the one that's been tormenting them.
Yeah, so... They head over...
So let's go fuck up Melkor.
Yeah, let's go fuck up Melkor. So they get there to the north, right? And they beat him like that.
Yeah.
And Melkor's like, I'm out. Going to my hidey hole over to Autumno.
His spider hole.
Yeah. Like, it just goes and, like, jumps in. Now, this is where... And, oh, fuck. I was going to look it up. This is where I've read some fun, different stories about what happened. Because we know that... see, and I'm not going to remember the name of this either. We know that going into it, they were like, okay, we need something to help us with this. So Aule built Anglakel. No, that's the sword. He built the chains.
Right. That eventually chained him.
Right. And there's maybe it was in Book of Unfinished. No. What's the first history of Middle Earth? The Book of Lost Tales?
I don't know.
Yeah, the Book of Lost Tales. It might have been in that I read it. Or honestly, it could have just been on Tolkien Gateway. I don't remember. Anyway, where they basically like have this plan, right? They go and get him, and they trick Melkor. So none of this is in the book. It just says they finally get into Autumno in the Silmarillion. They finally get into Autumno. Tolkas is the one that like hits him, and then they put the chains on him.
They wrestle.
Right.
For a bit, but.
And then they put the chains on, and they take him away.
Yeah.
Whereas in the story that I read, it's actually really cool because it talks a little bit more about that. And there's two different ways that it happened, but one of them is they basically trick Melkor into saying, they're like at the gates, right? And they're like, Manway's going to come in and he's going to bow down to your supremacy and all of this stuff, right? So Melkor is like, okay, Manway can come in and like Aule can come in, but Tolkas can't come in. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's not allowed in here. This is my house. This is my tree house. He's not allowed, right?
No Tolkas is allowed.
Yeah, and so like they go in and they do their thing, and Tolkas basically comes in anyway, like sneaks in the back, right?
He
type
pulls
of thing.
a Gandalf.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like back
Just
there.
make sure you take his staff.
Yeah, and he's back, and like it has something to do with like Manway bows, and Manway didn't want to do this, right? Because he feels like it's lying. Right. And Manway has none of that in him. Yeah. He doesn't have lying in him. But he like bows to Melkor, and Melkor basically is like kiss my foot type of thing. Yeah. And that like sets Tolkas off. And he goes over, and it even talks about like he goes up and he punches him and he breaks out his teeth. And like a few of his teeth get broken out, which I can just imagine like teeth like this big go flying, you know, like in my head. It's like a Guy Ritchie movie, which is like but like
it's that slow motion shot where everything's frozen, but then they like
pan exactly, and it's just like and Tolkas knocks out his teeth,
very Scott Pilgrim,
knocks him to the ground, and then puts the chains on, and it goes like there's one around his neck, and then there's on his wrists, and they take him out that way. Right, and that's my favorite story because in the Silmarillion it's so just like glossed over.
Yeah, it's just very. Like,
it's just
they
like
fought him and they took him in chains.
They fought him in the north, and then they got to Autumno, and Tolkas wrestled him.
It was a long enough battle, right?
That it scared the fuck out of the elves.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is like, I mean, can you imagine? Like, it's basically like watching, like, in the North, you're watching, like, a nuclear war happen. Just, like, the way that it's described, like, they saw the lights and heard the thunder of, like, in the North. And that's all they saw of it. They didn't see anything else. But they saw, like, the fires and the flashes and everything else. And, I mean, like, that would be pretty terrifying.
And so they beat Melkor, and then Melkor's gone, and there's nothing wrong in the world of Middle-earth anymore, right?
Right. Sure.
Except that Manway's in charge. And Manway thinks it's a good idea to invite the elves to go stay in Aman with them. With Melkor, who's over there now.
That's the worst part.
Who now, at this point, hates them because the only reason he's in chains is because of the elves.
Right.
Right? So, way to go, Manway. Anyways, but yeah, it's just, there's no, he doesn't have common sense is the problem.
No. Well, and I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that he doesn't understand evil.
Right.
Like, it just isn't in his nature.
Other people, like Tulkas does.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And it's just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to listen to you.
Well, and that's the problem, right? You surround...
Okay, bro.
Yeah, like...
Right?
You're surrounding yourself with people who do understand those things, but you're not going to listen to them.
Right.
It's like, come on,
Why are they there?
Come on. Which, honestly, I think that's why Ulmo never comes to shore. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that he just likes the sea more. No, he's like, my brother's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Like, I can't deal with him. Like, I've tried so many times.
I like my little SeaWorld.
Because, actually, that being said, because Ulmo was one of the ones that was specifically saying, how about we don't bring the elves over here?
Yeah.
How about we leave the elves where they are and let them do their own thing? Yeah. Like, Ulmo was very, very, like, ardent about them staying in Middle-earth. And yet... Manway's an idiot.
No. Manway says no.
God.
So then, Orme... Was it Orme that has to go?
Orme goes back again to talk to them. And at first, they're like, no.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, we saw that. Yeah. That was scary.
You want to take us there?
Yeah. Like, which, again, I can only imagine that, like, like, maybe he changes his form at some points, but, like, they know these are, like, larger-than-life beings, right? Yeah. Like, they know that these beings are, like, they could fuck them up.
Yeah.
And they're just like...
Well, it's not only that. It's like, if you're in a place, right, like you don't know anything about, like, you know, you don't know anything about the aggressors, right? But you're in a place, and all of a sudden, there's all this fighting, right? And you know that one of the people, you know the two people who are involved.
Right.
And then one of those people wins, and then they come and say, "You're coming back with us."
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like, it's just like, no. But...
He gets 3 volunteers.
Yeah.
Or he chooses people.
He chooses 3 people.
Yeah.
Who I would assume are the leaders, right?
Right.
So that's why that story I told earlier is probably a legend, because you never hear from them again.
Right. But hey, maybe, you know, it might be the fact that they're, like, there's a lineage from there.
Yeah.
What the fuck do we know?
But, so the 3 people are...
So we've got Ilwe, Finwë, and Ingwe.
Yeah.
Right?
Ilve.
God damn it. I really didn't want you to do that.
Anyways. Who are the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri.
Right. In that order, right?
Yeah. Ingwe, Finwë,
and Ilwe.
Elwë.
Yeah. Yeah. And Olwe, who is Elwë's brother.
But he doesn't go.
No. Oh, right. Sorry. I'm skipping way ahead here. Yeah, so they go, which is the only reason why Thingol is considered not a what are they called? the dark elf, Maury Quimby. Because he actually has seen the light of the trees. Right. So they go.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows what they do there?
I'm picturing holiday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's more of a like, hey, I'm picturing like a timeshare pitch.
Yeah.
Right. By the Valar.
All right, guys, look, we've got this nice hill of tuna, and
this is where you guys can be. Like,
yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Here are 2 trees.
Look at those.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced something like this before?
It's probably a visit. They probably go check it out, see it, right? Get introduced to it. Like, I'm sure the Valar, like, once they
put it on their best behavior.
All the
food.
All we have to do is show them, and then they'll just want to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they love it. It is a very peaceful place to be, and so they go back and they're like, yeah, let's do this. We should all go.
Yeah.
Right. And then they decide to leave, and that's where we're gonna stop it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's essentially kind of what we're going. I mean, I feel like that's a good place to stop. That's kind of. I do think that whole thing is funny too, and like, could you imagine? Like, I mean, again, like, because the time is different for the Ainur versus the children of Iluvatar. I'm really hoping that like Manwë and Orome and them didn't keep them for too long.
Right.
Because could you imagine being the elves still in Middle-earth? Like, they have not come back. Like, there's no way we're going.
We're terrified of these giant people who fought a ridiculous war that lit up the sky like we've never seen. They took our lead. We can't even go to one place because it's just like death and fumes and stuff over there. And they took our leaders, so we're leaderless, right? And we all know how well a leaderless society operates. I'm imagining the elves were like, okay, cool, we should go back now because they're going to worry about us. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I can't imagine it's very long. Like, this has been really fun. But, like, the reason why I wonder is because, well, that's getting into... The reason why I wonder, without any specifications, the reason why I wonder how long they were gone is because what we get in the next part of this history and the travel that it takes. Oh, yeah. So maybe Manwë's Eagles were involved in this come on over to Amon. They took the chartered flight. Yeah, right. As opposed to the Greyhound. Yeah. Right? Because let's be real, what we're going to go into next time, it takes them a long-ass time. Yeah. Like, this is why when we talk about the show, I don't think you can do the show at the height of Numenor. Nah. Because the times... But you can bring that, like, you can do 2 seasons at the years of Aldarion and then jump ahead. Like, that's the whole point. Because you'll still have these immortal characters to tie everything together. Yeah. Right? So you can still have Galadriel there or Gil-galad, who, like, talks about fighting the first wars with Sauron with your great-great-great-great-grandfather Aldarion. Yeah. You know? I don't know. That's what I'm hoping. I'm actually hoping the elves are only there to tie things together, and it's mostly about the Numenorians. I'm sure it's going to be mostly about the Numenorians. It's harder to relate to the elves. Yeah, and this is something that, like, I think we've talked about, not on this before, but, like, in general. Did we do it on the first one? We either did it on the first one, or we talked about it during the bad audio. Yeah. But like, yeah, I mean, it comes down to time, right? And I think that's what's most difficult about anything in the Silmarillion, trying to transfer it into any medium besides written. You would have to speed up time. Yeah, you would have to show, or you would have to basically just like
we're gonna ignore this.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna ignore the fact that it could have been hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Like, we're just not gonna talk about that.
And the fact that when they're there for a long time.
A really, really long time. Yeah. You would have to make it feel like it was years instead of centuries or millennia.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget how old Galadriel is when she's like 1,000.
Círdan is, I'm pretty sure Círdan is like 8,000 years old.
Yeah.
Like he's...
And he was one of the first.
Yeah. Because he was one of the, what are they called? Naldor? Not Noldor. Nandor. He was one of the Nandor who bounced. He never went over.
Yeah.
But he made that trip basically all the way to the coast, and then he was like, nah.
I like the coast.
Yeah. I'm going to go south and chill at the coast.
That's more of the next story, though.
Right.
Which is a good story.
Yeah. That's where, honestly, like, that's one of the places that I get super confused, though. Like, I need to write down a chart because it starts, like, right out the gate, it starts with different names. Because even on this, it says, like, I'm pointing to our sheet.
What sheet?
What sheet? We don't have a cheat sheet. Even with what we've talked about, it actually talks about that Orome called them by the name Eldar, but moving forward, that only applied to those who followed him. So that name Eldar didn't, like, right out the gate, they're talking about this splitting.
The Avari.
Right.
Who don't.
Right.
Which again.
Next time.
Next time is confusing. Next time we need charts for what we're about to read.
Oh, I was going to ask, I mean, since we're here, and we're still recording, what do you think of the new name?
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the logo. You did it?
I did the logo. I mean, I'm going to announce it here. I'm not going to do it. I mean, look, right now I have 5 subscribers. I could say we have, because you've been on a decent amount of these. You and Ariel are definitely members of the Swolhirrim.
Yeah.
But like, what I would like to do is get like 20 shirts that just say Swolhirrim right here, and then have that logo on the back.
That'd be cool.
Probably like a darker green than what the logo is, like the shirt will be.
Shirt color?
Yeah.
It's either...
That sounded like gunshots.
Yeah, it's gunshots.
Yeah.
Oh, hopefully that picked it up.
Yeah, that definitely sounded like gunshots.
We're in East Oakland,
yeah.
So...
yeah, that wasn't fireworks.
No. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, I mean, kind of like that color.
Like this color?
Like that avocado green.
Yeah. That'd be a good color for the shirt.
Yeah,
and
for
then
the shirt.
And then the logo in white, right?
Yeah. So I think that that would be fun. Like, do like a run of 20 and like have them for if we do contests or something like that, you know. I'm expecting that at some point we're at least going to have 15 followers. The reasons why I don't like some of the channels is that it can get pretentious.
Yeah.
And not just pretentious, but like holy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed mythology, right? So like I remember as a kid, like the school library had like a Greek mythology like book, right? It was probably like about that thick, and it's probably the first thing I ever like chose to read myself, right? That wasn't like either given to me or you know like I didn't have to read for like school, right? And it was just like it was an entire history of like Greek mythology and the stories, right?
Right.
Of like you know the Titans and then you know Zeus
leading into the gods.
Yeah, leading into the Greek gods and their battles and stuff like that. And so you read the stories, and which is essentially what we have.
Hi, puppies.
Hi, baby.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
Hi, Rosie. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Hi, Rosie. Hello. Hello. Oh, I missed you. I've missed you. I like the idea of like being very involved.
Yeah.
But like it doesn't have to be sacrosanct.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean it's at the end of the day it's
a story.
It's fiction.
Yeah.
Right? It's science. It's not science fiction, but it's
high fantasy.
High fantasy.
Right.
It's not real.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
As much as we can.
As much as we want it.
Yeah. As much as we want to find dwarves in the mountains somewhere.
It's a great story. There's fun things to talk about, right?
And there's cool stuff in it, and not just cool stuff. Like there definitely are lessons.
The mythology behind it is interesting, right?
Yeah, and one of the very first things I think that you and I talked about, that you actually said that I think it was you, that said that you wanted to look into a little bit more. There are there are lessons in it, right? It doesn't have to be like you don't have to think of that, but there are things in there, like the idea that. In my opinion, all throughout, at least the Silmarillion, but I see it even in like the Lord of the Rings and some other stories.
Pride.
Tolkien really stresses the idea of like knowledge without wisdom is a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like the Noldor are obsessed with knowledge, and Melkor is happy to give it to them, but without the wisdom of knowing what it means and how to use it, and that's what gets them in trouble. Right? And that happens a lot throughout a lot of things. I think that, like, personally, I think that's even kind of what happened to Sauron. Is this idea of knowledge without the real wisdom of how to use it.
Saruman. Same thing with Saruman.
Right.
He had all this knowledge about the rings.
Yeah.
And then he got corrupted by wanting, like, desire, right?
So
and then, that's a big theme. Pride's another big theme, right? He ends up the story of just the fact that the hobbits, right, are the ones who save humanity, right?
A lowly hobbit,
right?
Yeah.
Who really isn't interested in anything other than eating and enjoying their garden.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's all they want.
Right.
And so like this one person, this unassuming creature, right, has saved humanity.
Yeah.
Right.
And there, like I said, there are great lessons in it, but that doesn't mean that you have to speak of it as this like holy book. Yeah. And not only that, but like, I mean, one of the reasons why I do this the way that I do, why I've created this form of speaking about Tolkien, is because I like being a little irreverent about it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, we already know that it's there. Writing up this outline was honestly one of the funnest things I've ever done. Writing the line of Manwë has to think about it, and Orome goes back, chills with the elves for a while, maybe a century, who the fuck knows. Right. I like that. I like talking about things that way. I mean, that's why, that specifically is what made you tell me that I should start doing this. Yeah. Is because I sent you that video about me talking about the pansy-ass men and elves in the Third Age compared to the badass motherfuckers that, like, a man who's like, you know what? I'm gonna go fight a god. Yeah. Like, that sounds fine. Yeah. Like,
I could do that.
Yeah, I can do that. I love her, so I can do that. That'll be fine. Yeah. It's like what? And then you've got people like I said, it was like this whole idea of then you've got elves and men later on that are like, oh, orcs are so scary. It's like, fuck you guys. Like, come on. But yeah, I think that's kind of why I fall away from listening to a lot of podcasts and watching a lot of YouTube stuff, is because I'm like, fuck you, you're taking that a little too far. Yeah. Or like something that we talked about that we're going to do episodes on is the movies.
Right.
Like all 6 of them. Yeah. All 6 of them. Not 3, 6. And just the way that people talk about those too. And like there was a podcast on that I listened to, and I was like, come on, guys. Yeah. Like, you're being a little ridiculous here.
There's so much that they've kind of put into, like, into this story that anything that deviates from what they have in their mind about it.
See, and that's the biggest problem, right?
Right.
Because it's not what's written or what's presented or what isn't presented. It's what they have in their mind about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, well, it's a story.
Right.
And everyone views the story differently.
Yeah.
Right. And so, someone could read the story in a place where they look like me, right?
Yeah.
And they're brown.
Right.
Right. And everyone there could be brown.
Yeah.
Right. And that's fine.
Right.
And it's just it's a story, right? Everyone can view it however they want to view it, and no one's view is correct. And all you have to do is appreciate the way the story's told.
Yeah.
Right? And if the story is told crap, right? Then you can be mad.
Right.
Right? But if the story kind of holds true to what it is, then then fuck you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? For being like, well, this isn't how I want it.
And
save your hate for the sad eventual fact when Hollywood runs out of things to make movies of, and they try to make a remake of it. And they reboot it. Right?
Yeah.
That's when the hate should really come out, right?
Yeah. That'll be weird. Hope I don't live to see that day.
No, me neither.
But yeah, like I actually think that's why I should watch more like informational stuff when it comes to Tolkien, that I just don't.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff that I listen to is for entertainment.
Yeah.
But I did find the one that I told you about that I actually really do like is the Unexpected podcast. And like they do a great job. One, because they are very much like I would say they're even more so novices than we are, in that they haven't read the Silmarillion. Like they've just read The Lord of the Rings and like watched the movies and The Hobbit, right? And stuff like, but like the Silmarillion is not something that they're even really acquainted with. There's a few things here and there, but
there's a lot in the Silmarillion that you can. The Silmarillion is a more fleshed out appendix.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There's more stories in there.
I feel like you get a lot of the Second Age in the appendix.
Yeah.
Same with I do believe that most of our stories that we're gonna get for like the TV show is either gonna be from the appendices or from the unfinished tales. Well, next time we talk about history stuff, we'll be talking about
Rosie.
the sundering of the elves.